Okay, what's going on? Is there like a curse on Superman? I was never a fan of the original Superman movies. They weren't bad. They had their good points, but I don't know. As they were too, there were parts of it that were too campy. Certain parts I just didn't like. I was never a fan of it. Then you had Superman Returns with Brandon Routh, which wasn't good. It was made by Bryan Singer, so of course it wasn't gonna be good. And then you had obviously Snyder's Superman movies, which were all garbage. And then you had this. Um, so this new one, it wasn't. This wasn't like horrible, incompetent garbage like a lot of the other stuff that we see. But there were so many missteps, unnecessary modifications to the character, certain just changes to certain aesthetics. I mean, this character is almost a century old. A century. There are certain things that no matter how long we've gone on with Superman, there are certain things that have stayed the same. Why make changes to those things now? I don't get when these people make these nonsensical, unnecessary changes. You can make your own version of something, but if you're making your own version of something that has stood the test of time the way Superman has, you don't make changes to certain core things. It'd be like saying, I'm going to make my own version of a Whopper, but I'm going to make it a tofu patty. Well, then it's not a damn Whopper. The core thing of a Whopper is that it's a damn beef patty. I don't want a tofu patty. You don't need to make certain changes. So there were a lot of missteps in the movie. So first off, there was a lot happening in the movie. There was a lot of things going on, a lot of switching. I mean, the story was linear, and it was easy to follow. Again, this wasn't like incompetent garbage. It was just a lot of why, and also a lot of I was kind of bored at the movie. I wasn't excited. And with Superman, if you're gonna make, I don't even want to say changes, but if you're gonna do things differently, well, then you can do things differently to make it great. I'm tired of not seeing a Superman movie. Maybe they did some of that in Man of Steel. I don't remember because that movie was boring garbage. But I want to see, I am practically a god, Superman. I want to see that. And I'm not getting that in this movie. That when the movie opens, Superman has gotten his butt kicked, and then he goes and gets his butt kicked again, and then he gets his butt kicked. You eventually realize who it is and kind of maybe why, but it doesn't even make sense at that point. But in the beginning of the movie, it's Superman, and this is your introduction to Superman, and Superman's getting his butt beat by some robot looking thing. And most of us, I mean, I'm sure there are diehard fans of Superman that may know every little thing that was in here, but I didn't know who that robot was. It was just a robot. And then initially, as I'm watching it, I'm saying this Superman versus a robot. Superman can rip through steel literally like an elephant ripping through toilet paper. So it's like, that's why I'm not a Superman fan. I've never been a big Superman fan or a Superman fan at all because the character is just dumb. Bullets can bounce off of him, but then there's times when metal robots can knock him down. It's just stupid. If if this guy is so powerful and things like steel and metal from our planet is not that strong or can't hurt him, then a robot shouldn't be able to hurt him. But you have characters like Metallo that come along and they fight him and he gets knocked down. It's just stupid. So I'm watching this fight in the beginning. I'm like, well, damn, they're beating him up. This isn't the Superman that I want to see. Also, again, I've said this in a Suicide Squad Part 2 video, and I said it in a Spider-Man video. Maybe I didn't say it as much in the Suicide Squad, but I'm pretty sure I did. There's too much comedy in movies that don't need comedy. The Man of Steel movie with Snyder was too dry. It was too dry. And those types of movies where you have a stoic character who's not comedic, like a Superman or a Batman, then you have other characters like a Jimmy Olsen that can provide a sprinkle of humor. You don't need to douse the story in humor. You don't need that's not this character. That's not this story. That's like making a story about Plastic Man. It's going to be humor, and then you make a story about Macbeth. That doesn't have humor. You don't doesn't need it. It's not that type of story. You don't have to do that. And with James Gunn, with a lot of these directors, like I said in the Suicide Squad video, Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one from 2014, was a great comic book movie. It was a great movie. I loved that movie. I love it to this day. Guardians 2 wasn't as good, but it was still fun ride. Guardians 3 I didn't like, but he did something special with Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy characters at all. So whatever he did to it, it didn't affect me if he made changes because I don't know nothing about them. But the comedy that he introduced into that film, it worked with those characters and it worked for that story. Same thing with people like Zack Snyder. His style worked for something like 300. But then they do the same style for every different story. And that doesn't work. You don't need this kind of humor and stuff in a Superman story. Of course, you're going to, again, it's still a comic book movie. You're going to want to have sprinkles of it at least because it's still a comic book movie. It's not a Shakespearean play. But you don't need to douse the story with comedy where there's like dumb little thing. I don't even know how to explain it anymore. These little comedic outtakes or looks that characters make and shrugs and glances, just these little comedic things that are happening all the time. Even Superman's doing them. It was too much of it. Maybe if you want to do it once in a while with Superman, the character actually doing it, maybe. But not all. It was happening too much at this point. Another thing I didn't like is in this movie, I think these filmmakers are so busy trying to make the characters grounded that they're forgetting that some of the characters shouldn't be grounded. They tried to do this thing where they made Clark Kent more of a human being. And you've had little glimpses of that theme in other stories throughout. I mean, it's been almost 100 years, so you're going to have people doing little things here and there. But again, in this, it was too much of it. You can do it where Clark shows that, I'm trying to embrace humanity, but he's not a human. He's not. So him making mistakes and being emotional and not being able to control himself, that doesn't make sense for this character. There's a great line in the Superman cartoon from the 90s. I like that show a lot. I didn't love it, but I did like it, and I watched a lot of it as when I was younger. But there's this sequence and line in one of the episodes that stood out to me, and I always remembered it. And in that sequence, Superman is fighting Darkseid, and he tells Darkseid, this is one of the what we have here this is one of the rare occasions, something like that. I'm going to paraphrase. It's been a long time. This is one of the rare occasions where I get to unleash, I get to show what I can really do, because I live in this world where I have to be super careful about everything. And right now, I finally found someone in you, Darkseid, that I can really open up on.
I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard, always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone, never allowing myself to lose control, even for a moment, or someone could die. You can take it, can't you, big man? What we have here is a rare opportunity for me to cut loose and show you just how powerful I really am.
And that is the Superman character. He has to be careful, and he has to be reserved and hold in his emotions. He has to. Because him flipping out in any way could lead to the death of lots of people. And if this guy sneezes wrong, he could kill people. So he has to control himself. He's like an atom bomb. He has to just be very careful. Imagine being someone that powerful and you have to walk through crowds and stuff like that. You don't want to swing your arm too hard because you could kill somebody. you don't want to trip and fall. You might break someone's leg. He has to be so controlled in his emotions and his reactions and the way that he lives his life that is who the character is. You're not going to see him having emotional outbursts multiple times. He had emotional outbursts, and he won against one with Lois, one with Lex, and I think one with somebody else. It was like this is too much. And at the end, he tells Lex, I am human and I make mistakes and stuff. All right, fine. But you can't make him too human. You can't make that character too human because, again, he is practically like a god living amongst humans. And that's one of the interesting things of the story. And in this, again, they're working too much to try to make him feel like the everyman. He's not the everyman. He's the thing that every man and woman should aspire to be, to that level. So you shouldn't make him appear that way. In the original Superman movies, again, I didn't really love those movies, but Christopher Reeve kind of did a good job. As Clark Kent, he played a role of a goofball and a doofus and a klutz. But when he was Superman, and that's his real persona, you saw how he was. He was sort of like a prince or a king. He was kind of dignified, and he was dignified because he kind of knew, I am above these people. I am better than these people. I don't think of them as less than me, but in reality, I am better than them. And that's just a mindset that any normal male or female creature would have if they grew up like a Superman, like a Clark Kent, and they realize, I can throw mountains into the moon if I wanted to. I can breathe and turn things to ice. I can blink and I can just incinerate somebody. You would start to understand and realize, I am above these people. I don't think of them as less than me, but I am above them. And then after a while, you would have a certain air about you. That's the air Superman should always have, because that's his reality. Now, if you want to show him trying to embrace humanity more, then yes, that's a great thing to show. But just trying to make him seem more human, that doesn't work with the character. It doesn't work. I didn't like the fact that there were no real Superman fights that I enjoyed. There were none. He fought Bizarro at the end. That wasn't a really good fight. And most of the fights it felt like the camera was being thrown back and forth. Like he was just being thrown around. I wanted to see, we've seen better fights in cartoons with this guy. And they can't show us any of that. I didn't. Another thing, there were so many things in this movie that I didn't like that made me just not like the movie as a whole. There were too many characters. And again, this is something these people do. Focus on this one character. There's too many characters. I mean, you had all these Mr. Terrific, you had Guy Gardner, you had a Hispanic Hawk Girl, all these different characters. I forget that guy's name. I always forget his name, that he turns into different gases and stuff. You had him. I didn't really, no, I'm not going to say that. I didn't like the way he was portrayed, but it was all right. It was kind of all right. You have a lot of these characters that you're being shown. And again, this is kind of like an introduction into this Superman. You got to slow it down and let us know who these people are. It was kind of like this shit was a sequel to a movie. I felt like I was watching a sequel to a movie I never saw. Like, dude, what the fuck's going on in this shit? It's just, I didn't like it. The woman that played Lois, I didn't like her initially because she was in some other movie or some other TV show where she played like a writer or a comedian on I don't know, something. And I never thought she was that attractive, but I'll be honest. By the middle of the movie, I was like, oh, this lady's kind of hot. So I didn't mind that, but I didn't love their dynamic. There's a time when Lois is, she's like, I can't do this with Clark. And it kind of gives that thing as if she's just dating an average man. I mean, come on, man. Come on, dude. It's too much of this thing in Hollywood where men are not allowed to, they're not allowed to have women view men as something great. If I'm saying that right. Maybe I'm not expressing that properly, but it's like the women always think of the men as something they're settling for. Like they can't show it. They're not allowed to really show it. I guess that's how what I felt when I watched it. Because I'm like, dude, you're dating Superman. It's not, you guys had like a bullshit, a BS argument. It wasn't even a real argument, and she's kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. It's this guy's like a god. You bagged a god. I mean, that shit ain't enough. Like Jesus Christ, what the fuck does a man have to be for a woman to really kind of open herself up and be like, you know what, I'm gonna open myself to you, and you got it, you can lead, and I'll follow what you say. Hey, Jesus, they're not allowed to show that anymore. You don't have to show her as a pushover, which they didn't, but you can show her as, it's just, I didn't like that. Of course, eventually she comes around and they go back to whatever. But that argument that they were having in whoever's apartment, in Lois's apartment, I've heard a lot of people saying that was, that they liked that. I didn't like that, only because, first of all, the writing of the argument was kind of dumb, because Lois was pushing too hard. It's felt like a sequel to a movie that I never saw. I never saw the original, because the way that they're discussing things, the way she was like pushing him, is kind of like, well, is there something from their relationship I'm missing? Because this is Lois and Clark, and the Lois that I've known from these comic book stories all these years, she wouldn't push him on stupidity like that. She may try to guide him and tell him, well, this is how it works. But it's just the way she was like pushing him was like unnecessary. It felt like she was picking at him, and I was like, why are they writing it like that? And then again, Clark is losing his temper, and that's something he would have learned from when he was young. I can't do that. That's why you normally don't see him doing that. Normally, he just lets people have it. Batman talks to him like he's a bitch, and Clark kind of takes it, because he's in his mind, he's like, I could burn this guy to death by looking at him. I don't need to be concerned. Number one, I'm better than that, and number two, I have to control my emotions, because if I get angry enough, I could burn this guy to death by looking at him. So I have to learn to control that. And over the years, he did. That's the type of character he is. He should be more stoic, more reserved. Again, more like a prince or a king. Because again, that's kind of what he is. So there's just a lot of stuff I didn't like his suit. The guy that played Superman, I didn't dislike him, but I wouldn't have picked him. It's like a lot of choices in these movies that just, the Superman liking punk rock, that shouldn't be a big deal, but again, it is, because this character, again, is supposed to be more like a prince or a king or someone that the everyman aspires to be. So he shouldn't have an attachment to certain things, because it's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like it makes that character belong to a certain group of people when he shouldn't. This isn't, what character can I think? I can't think of any character that belongs, but there are characters that have that type of, most characters have that. Well, this is my personality. This is who I am. The Superman character either started off this way or eventually reached this height where he is like the blueprint for heroes. Superman is like the blueprint for heroes. He belongs to everyone. So you shouldn't know certain things. There's certain things that you shouldn't know, because again, it makes him belong to another group. It would be like if they said, oh, Clark listens to hip hop, and then he starts being associated with hip hop crowd, or Clark listens to smooth jazz, and then he starts to be associated with people that, it's not supposed to be, you're not supposed to know what he likes. It's supposed to be like, oh, he's the blueprint and the blank canvas and the template for what a great person should be. So anything could be attached to him. So that shouldn't be something that's revealed. You shouldn't know that stuff. And again, it's just like, that's not knowing the character. So this like little things that they're attaching to him, I just didn't like. The Lex Luthor character, I thought Nicholas Hoult had the perfect look. Perfect look. There were certain things about the way he moved and acted that I liked, but in this case, it wasn't his fault. The writing kind of made him veer off. Again, there was too much comedic shit going on. He like knocked over a thing of pens and made people pick it up. Okay, fine. You want to show that he's a crazed lunatic person who likes to be in charge and pick on people. Fine. But then they pick it up and then he knocks it down again like it's like a joke. It's too many jokes. And that's the thing that I said in Suicide Squad. This guy, James Gunn, he just takes It seems like he found something that worked and he's just going to do it over and over again. Suicide Squad was literally like a fucking copy of Guardians of the Galaxy. He couldn't really do that here, but he tried. That's why you had the Justice Gang. You had all these motley crew of characters who come together just like in Guardians, just like in Suicide Squad. It's like they do the same thing over. Same thing with Zack Snyder. Your style has to change for that specific character slash story slash thing. It has to change. I can't make a Tom and Jerry movie and then move on and make Good Will Hunting the same way I made Tom and Jerry. Where there's slapstick shit happening. It's two different things. And if you don't change, then the production company has to realize we can't use this director. We got to find somebody else that can make this movie. And again, that's why the first few phases of Marvel were so good or so great, depending on the movie, because you had different directors picked for different movies, and each director had their own style that would kind of fit that particular character. Like you picked Jon Favreau for Iron Man, and it worked perfectly. You picked Kenneth Branagh for a movie like Thor. Now, Thor wasn't a great movie, but at least it felt like a Thor movie should. These characters speak in this British accent because they're supposed to be like royalty, because in the story they are royalty, so they're supposed to feel and act like royalty. And Kenneth Branagh has experience making Shakespearean stuff, so it made sense. We picked Kenneth Branagh because this movie needs to have this type of tone. Captain America needs to have this type of tone. It can't be as comedic as Ant-Man. It needs to be a little different. Yeah. And they picked different directors who kind of made different. With these new things, they like pick one director to do all of the shits. So for Zack Snyder, he did everything, and the tone didn't change. It was the same shit for each character. And now they're doing it again. Now James Gunn is coming along. They're going to say, hey, you take the reins and you make everything. You can't do that. This doesn't work. Then you have shit like this happening where the stuff from other things bleed over into these new movies, but it doesn't fit in this movie, so it ruins it. So I didn't like this movie. Again, the action sequences. I want to see the big monster that they were fighting. It looked like a rubber. It didn't even look like a fucking monster. It looked like some kind of rubber puppet shit thing. I was like, what is this shit? I mean, I don't know, the texture, something about the monster looked like a rubber puppet that these guys were fighting. And I'm not seeing you're just not really able to see him be Superman. And if you don't want to do that in the first movie, that's fine. But again, you decided not to do an introduction to this character for us. You just threw us in. He's been Superman for 3 years. So this is Superman. So he should be doing it's not like I'm a beginner. This is Superman. So he should be being Superman. I mean, there's a giant monster in the city and Superman can't stop it. He needs help from these other people. Superman didn't even stop the monster. It was the fucking Mr. Terrific. Stop the monster. It's Superman, and this is just fucking monster. You pick that shit up and throw it out of the city. Another thing, watching, and it's just like stupidity writing. This guy again. You didn't do an introduction, so certain things would have made sense if Superman just appeared in Metropolis, and this was oh wow, there's this man in blue doing all this stuff. No, he's been doing this for a long time. He has people that love him, that know him around the world. They've watched his feats. They've witnessed the things that he can do, and they've also witnessed the destruction from the shit that happens when he fights. But when you're watching this movie, there's people like standing in the vicinity, like literally right under him, eating ice cream as buildings are falling down. I'm watching them like, dude, I mean, I know Superman's supposed to save people and stuff, and you got to show that, but write it properly where it makes sense. Why would people be sitting there watching that shit? There's a giant monster in the street breathing fire. People in their offices just working. They wouldn't evacuate the fucking building. It's like, dude, these movies are just like stupid. Just like dumb shit going on in the movie. It's like, again, when you watch movies, certain little things you can, if the movie is good, you can ignore it, or you may not even notice it if the movie's good enough. But if the movie is bad, or it's just not good, or it's boring, this stuff is gonna stick out. Like, these guys are in an alternate in another pocket galaxy or pocket universe or some shit, and he has prisons set up, and the people in the prisons, the people don't go to the bathroom. There's no toilets in the boxes. Where do they go to the bathroom? It's just so stupid. It's like little stuff that's just um I liked Guy Gardner. I liked the way they portrayed Mr. Terrific. The Hawk Girl character, it felt like what shouldn't have been there because there was no real introduction. It made sense for characters like Guy Gardner, maybe even Mr. Terrific. Like a Guy Gardner, most people don't know Guy Gardner. We know Hal Jordan's Green Lantern, or even John Stewart's Green Lantern. Most people don't know Guy Gardner. So throwing that character in is fine. But Hawkgirl, even Mr. Terrific's not as well known as Hawkgirl, but Hawkgirl's kind of known, unless this character wasn't Hawkgirl. I don't know who this character was then, but I thought it was Hawkgirl. And people kind of know her. So it's just like, well, we threw her in as a side character. They didn't even like give her a fucking name, her civilian name. So it's just certain. It felt like this guy was just doing another version of some other shit, of something that he did in the past. He didn't want to make a Superman movie, and so he didn't. I didn't like. I know that, you know, they're supposed to feel like the everyday person, but I didn't like the actors that they picked to play Clark's parents. I didn't like that. They didn't feel, again, the Superman character and story is supposed to be a blueprint for all these other things. So certain people, the characters in this story, certain ones anyway, are supposed to appear a certain way. Not like a fat frumpy redneck guy. That the guy that played his dad. I just didn't look right to me when they were talking to each other. I don't know. That may not be a big deal to other people, but I didn't like that his mom looked like a hillbilly doofus. I didn't really like that. I mean, you don't have to make fun of Southerners. Jesus Christ, you could have made. There are Southern farmers who, you know, dress properly, and you could have done that. You didn't need to kind of like take a piss on Southerners. The one thing I did like, I guess, is it looked like this was kind of commentary on the demonic Israeli government and the stuff that they're doing to the poor Palestinians. It seemed like this was kind of a message on that, and I liked that. I don't know if people saw that, or maybe I'm wrong, but that's what it looked like. It looked like they were, you know, the government that was working with Lex Luthor was Israel, and other country that government was trying to destroy, that Superman had wanted to save, that they were like the Palestinians. That's how it felt to me. That's just what it looked like. So I like that. Outside of that, I didn't really like it. His interaction with Lex Luthor didn't feel like a big deal. I guess you know what? It might be because I'm older. You know, I'm a lot older than the audience that this movie was made for. So maybe for me, it didn't. You know, maybe I shouldn't complain. I've said that in other things. Certain things change for different audiences, but the movie should be made for everybody. Because again, this character is almost 100 years old, so it's gonna have fans who are in their 70s at this point. Or a lot older, people that are still alive. It could be people that are 80 years old who are still fans of this, and it should be made for everybody. You shouldn't just erase certain things about this character's core being, and it seemed like they did that. People made fun of the flying. I guess it looked a little weird. They were trying to do this new angle thing, where it looked like the camera was like attached to him, but it kind of made it look comical. I didn't get that feeling that Superman. I didn't get the Superman feeling. This felt like a fan's idea of what Superman should be, and I didn't like it. Superman is having these fights with these things. And again, this is why I'm not a Superman fan. Superman moves just as fast as the Flash. Maybe not as fast, or maybe a little faster. I don't know, but I think he actually moves faster than the Flash. And and this guy, he can't be hurt really, and one blow from him could shatter a planet, practically. So when this character is getting into fights with like the girl that had nanites, that her body was made up of nanites, it's Superman. This guy moves literally faster than the Flash, or just as fast, faster than the speed of light. So why was he having trouble with these people? It's Superman. He could have literally thrown her into space. He could have threw her out of the galaxy if he wanted to. He could have threw that bitch into the sun if he wanted to. But he's having a hard time with a woman whose body is made out of I'm not American, but Earth metals. It's Superman. Maybe the Bizarro character, was that Bizarro? I guess that was Bizarro. I don't know if they called it Bizarro, but I'm assuming it was Bizarro. The Bizarro one would have made sense, but even when they fought, I didn't really get a good, these two powerhouses fighting each other. So I missed out on that and get to see like Superman being Superman. But all in all, I didn't enjoy this, and it's just like a string of these just bad decisions that these people make when they make these fucking movies. I don't know how it's so difficult. Certain superhero stories may be hard to make. I don't know why they would be, but others like Superman, that should be a home run for anybody who's competent. All you have to do is read. And again, I said this in something else, but I think some of these filmmakers, they read like certain graphic novels. So they'll read one or two graphic novels and they'll base the story on that particular graphic novel. You can't do that because the graphic novels are like, in my mind, they're like what if stories, because they never fully tie into the long story that has been written. This character's normal storyline. It's kind of like a offshoot story. So they only read one and make it off of that instead of doing their research into all the background of this character. So I don't know. I didn't like it. I found this for free like I always do. That's why these reviews are late. If you can find it, I guess give it a watch. If you want to pay for it, I don't know. I'm boycotting so much stuff now that I don't like telling or suggesting anybody pay for anything that rich people make. But if you can find it for free, give it a watch and come back here and let me know what you think. Or let me know if I'm wrong.